Representative Delozier.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Madam Secretary, I have a quick question on Act 89, which seems to be a lot of the focal point since it's such a huge bill. But what was not mentioned, and it was talked about a little bit earlier, you mentioned about the online registration for the vehicle registrations. So I guess my question from that, to tag on to that, is the fact you said $2 million savings because of the less mailing costs and that kind of thing. What is the estimated savings for not having to produce the sticker? And
1.1 million.
so that's on top of that too?
Correct.
Okay. So with those two savings, I know at the time you had said that the program is working well. One of the pushbacks that I've received and is from the actual enforcement of those that have expired registration stickers. So in the past, obviously, with the tag on the plate, law enforcement or anybody were able to easily decipher as to whether or not they were out of date or if they were in compliance. So a lot of the discussion had been about the scanners and the use of scanners, and now our local municipalities have to purchase these scanners in order to have that ability to quickly check. So my other understanding was that with the savings that they were going to go to grants in order to allow for these municipalities and local law enforcement to purchase these scanners. So I would like to know what that update is with the savings that you've been able to accrue and those grants going to those local law enforcements in order to buy that equipment.
Sure. So last year when we were talking about that was the plan, and we were willing to take that $3.1 million over the next 5 years. We were going to put that together and offer grants to buy hundreds of these scanners. But there was no interest. We tried to get a bill in place. Nobody wanted to move forward on it. And so what we did is we took all of that money and we put it back into construction. So that money is now being utilized to drive down the number of the decade of investment projects that we're working on. So it's not like it's sitting in a pot. It has been allocated and working on our network throughout the state.
And when you say no interest by companies for the scanners, no interest by law enforcement? Because, I get asked about it all the time from law enforcement, so I guess I don't understand why there would have been no interest.
We talked about it with the Transportation Committee in the Senate and the House, and it wasn't moving. There was not an interest. There was not an interest as far as moving that legislation forward, so it
Okay, so
pass.
So it wasn't asked then to law enforcement themselves in the sense of being able to do their jobs?
Well, we talked to law enforcement to see if scanners would be helpful, and there was an agreement that the scanners would be helpful, but there wasn't a large, coming together of people saying we need this and this is what we need, and there was definitely no movement last year. So we put it forth. I was surprised. I thought that a number of people would take it and run with it, but
Well, actually, I'm surprised because I sit on Judiciary and I don't remember a conversation whatsoever. So I would assume you went to the Judiciary committees in both.
No, we discussed it in Transportation as it was being discussed. That's how I discussed it anyway.
Okay. Well, I guess I would say that there's a tremendous amount of interest because the police officers don't feel they can do their jobs when it comes to the enforcement of the change in and of itself with the elimination of those stickers on the cars in and of themselves. So I've had a lot of discussions with it. I get a lot of frustration because that was a very large, an easy way to be able to dissect that and be able to determine whether or not somebody was. Now it's a secondary cause, a secondary reason for someone getting a citation or anything. And you've mentioned safety. Well, registration and being able to have our cars registered and doing the right thing, I guess, is an safety issue as well. Is that something that you would be interested or would be able to revisit then? Because I don't know if the Transportation Committee wasn't interested, but I can guarantee you I am.
Of course. We're always willing to talk about things. We'd have to identify money because the money it's not like it's sitting in a pile waiting to be used. It has been allocated, but we'd be happy to have that conversation. We like working alongside law enforcement. We want to make sure they can do the jobs that they can do. We'd be happy, to have that conversation.
Okay, I guess I would just register the fact that I can't believe there was absolutely no interest, considering how much I hear about this on a regular basis. So with the frustration of what did you do in Act 89 to us? So I'm surprised that didn't filter through in any of the other conversations. So thank you very much.
No, I can just say it was offered multiple times. I was also surprised.